Should. Hi, so today I have got the lovely Debbie Neville with me, and Debbie we're going to do a short interview just to talk a little bit about Debbie's experience of working with me. We have worked together for quite a while now, but Debs has just completed a couple of the 100-day programs with me, and her journey has been a really interesting one, and I think it'd be helpful for you guys to listen to what Debs has got to say. So tell us a little bit about, to start with, tell us a little bit about your history around your weight.
Okay, well, I've always struggled with my weight, probably from since sort of 16 onwards, when PE and things like that stop at school, and you're a typical rebellious teenager and you just want to eat and do whatever you want, and then realise that suddenly the weight's going on. So over the years, I've been on loads and loads of diets, restrictive diets, you name it, cabbage soup diet, all of them, all of them. But the problem for me was always maintaining. That was always the thing, that I can lose the weight, I can get into the place to lose it, but actually keeping it off has been the biggest struggle.
I think that's a real cycle, isn't it? I think it's like a pyramid, if you like, a triangle. Like, we're great at putting it on, we're great at losing it, because we've done that several times, and the hard bit is that actually maintaining it. And I don't know if your experience was, the more times you went round that loop, the less you would lose, and that period of time between how long you stuck to the diet got shorter and shorter, which is a really familiar pattern, isn't it?
Yeah, and also I think each time you do this, you put on more weight, so you've actually got even more weight to lose.
Yeah.
Over a period of time. So whereas before it was a couple of stone, the last weight loss, it was like 7 stone. So
yeah, and that is that when we step back and we actually look at what perpetuates that, and of course that it's not just about the diets itself, this whole kind of restriction and binging like a pendulum, that's part of it, but of course what's underpinning all of that is what's going on around us, what's going on in our thoughts. And if we don't start to work on that and change that cycle will just keep going round and round, and that's that familiar cycle. And of course every time we go around that cycle, we give ourselves a kick in about it, don't we? And then we hide, we put our heads in the sand and pretend it's not happening. I think that's part of what feeds into it's more every single time, because the self-loathing and guilt and shame is so deep rooted that we put our head in the sand for longer.
Definitely, it just gets higher, and you just then think like, oh god, I've got to do it again, and it just goes on. Like you say, it's just a complete vicious cycle, Hayley.
So what's been different this time? Take us back to summer of 2021. When you messaged me, I remember you messaged me and you hold your hands up. It was almost, I think you thought you were going to get a bit of a telling off from me, because you decided to do something quite radical, hadn't you?
Yeah, I think it was 2020. Was it this? No, I think it was last
2020. Yeah, I'm thinking we're in 2020.
Yeah, because I messaged you and said, Hayley, I know that this isn't the thing that you advocate, but I am in such a bad place. My life is just awful. I can barely move. I was in so much pain. I couldn't even go out for a walk without it hurting. I think there was 2 things that happened. There was the fact that I couldn't walk without it being excruciating, even just to do 1 or 2K. I'd just come back and have excruciating hip, knee, ankle pain. And then obviously the COVID had happened, and knowing that I was morbidly obese on the beloved BMI scale thingy, I knew that my health was compounded, and that if I was to contract COVID, it was going to have a huge, could be a devastating effect on me. And I'm a mum, 3 kids,
absolutely,
wife. I just didn't want to consider what was possible.
Absolutely.
So I just decided that I was going to embark on a restrictive diet plan, because I was just at that point. I needed to be quick, I needed to deal with it. So I found a program, and I was in the right space to do it. I was ready, and I just cracked on and I did it. And I can't remember how long it was now. It took me a good 8 or 9 months, I would have say. Shed 7 stone during that time. But throughout that time, I was also talking to you, and was sort of sharing what was going on with my journey as well, because I was already in the emotional eaters group, because I knew that the underpinning thing was that I was an emotional eater, and that was what the problem was for me.
Yeah.
I emotionally ate, and the thing I learned when I was on the restrictive program was that whenever it got tough, then I would binge. So I was very aware of all of this, but I was also very, very aware that this was going to be the last time I was going to go on one of these diets, because it was just now or never.
So what was different for you? What in your mind was different in terms of when you embarked on, because, you know, I'm not anti-diet. I have, the thing is, you know, if we are overweight and we want to lose weight, we have to eat less and exercise in some format. However, it is about breaking those cycles, not just the physical cycles, the emotional attachment cycles that we've got as well. So for you, you know, that whole fear of what catching COVID might have meant to you was a real motivator, wasn't it? But also, you know, I know through the chats that we've had, your mindset had changed. There was an acceptance that the physical weight was just only, losing the physical weight was only an aspect of the bigger picture. And as you say, you know, as you went through that process, it really heightened your awareness of some of the triggers, some of the things that actually triggered the binging for you. So fast forward those 8 or 9 months, you know, a huge achievement, and you know, the benefits the physical weight loss has brought to your life have been huge, haven't they?
Yeah.
You then kind of were in management. How did you find that kind of transition from having the restrictions and the safety of meal replacements to then having to return to the world of food? Is quite scary, isn't it? How did you find that?
It was. I think the good thing was I did it very slowly. So I didn't just go from meal replacements to food. There was like a bit of a transition where you had some meal replacements and some food. So I think that helped.
Yeah.
I sort of did it all properly, as you kind of via the program, if you like.
Yeah.
But I was always very conscious that the maintenance and the keeping the weight off was going to be the toughest bit. And I know historically, within a month of coming off of those programs, there's always been a gain. So I was very, very aware of that. So
it's how we relate to that gain as well, isn't it? Because naturally, moving from like 800 calories a day or whatever to more calories, you're likely to see an increase. But we've got such a relationship with the scales and weight gain. It's what we make that mean. And of course, when you've been in 7 or 8 months of losing weight each week, that kind of becomes the norm, and we're not quite prepared for seeing that weight gain. And that's the same with any program. One of the tripping points, I think, for people when they are losing weight is they see a gain, and that sends them into a bit of a head spiral.
I think that's it. And I think the thing was, the timing of your first 100 days was absolutely perfect for me, because I just reached my target weight and your program was starting. So I was thinking, right, okay, I don't want to just abandon everything about weight, because typically what happens is when you lose the weight, certainly this is what happened for me, when I lose the weight, I almost think, right, I'm a slim person now, I don't have a weight problem, I can get away with eating whatever I like. And then you just eat, and then all of a sudden you're back to square one and you go, oh, how did that happen? So I knew, I don't know, I think there was a lot of psychological stuff going on in my head. I just knew that this had to be different. You know, I knew that I'm 50 years old. I want to have a life where I'm active. I don't have to worry about my weight. I can go on a flight. I can go and do things. So it was really, really important that I you know, that I was wide awake this time. I think that was the difference. I was wide awake. I knew that my lifestyle needed to change. I needed to exercise. I needed to be aware of how much movement I was doing, because before I was incredibly sedentary. So that had to change. So I started sort of making steps. So by the time I'd finished the restrictive diet, I had started upping my steps. I was walking every day, and by, you know, within a month or two, I was starting to sort of incorporate exercise into my daily life. And I think that was when I realized that there is a bigger picture here.
Yeah, brilliant. And you know what, I think we all reach a point where we know things need to be different, but it's that difference between doing the same thing over and over again and actually taking small steps towards things being different. And that's exactly what you did. And you know, it's been an interesting process, hasn't it? You signed up to the 100 days. Tell us a little bit about that. What went on for you? Because this is where we really, in that 100 days, we started to really look at the emotional attachment to food and history and where all of this stuff starts. And tell us how you kind of found that first 100 days.
It's really interesting because I've done 2 lots of the 100 days, and the first 100 days there was loads of resistance around it. It was like, I don't know, I couldn't understand like why I was resisting it all, and I couldn't get my head around why would I resist something that I know is ultimately going to serve me. And what came up was lots of things around food as a child. That was probably one of the ones that I hadn't even registered would be an issue. I just thought you eat too much and you get fat. But it was actually a case of, I can remember as a child being given food to pacify me. So there was stuff going on in my life. An auntie or my mum or my dad or someone would give me food. And I was really, really aware of that. And then things came up, like things that I was called as a child. I was called dustbin. So I think psychologically, I just took that as, okay, that's my name, I'm dustbin. So that gave me permission to eat anything I wanted.
Yeah, and you know what? It's all of those experiences that form our self-concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, it was an interesting one, isn't it? And the rebellion that you talk about is really normal, because we want to, you know, eat less and exercise is familiar to us, and we like familiarity because we can do it, so it makes us feel good. Whereas when we start exploring stuff that's unfamiliar to us, that feels really scary, and we're also a bit fearful of what we're going to uncover in that process. So it's normal to have that natural resistance to, and also I think there's a degree of, we kind of think we know it all, don't we, a little bit, and actually we kind of like, oh, I think that ties into what you said about when you're slim or when you've lost the weight, you kind of think you're sorted, so you don't think there is. And it's only when you start to notice some of those old patterns start to come back in that we kind of think, right, okay, maybe I do need to explore this a little bit more. So the first 100 days, you know, you were engaged, but there was lots of like stepping away and resisting and rebelling, and we kind of kept communicating with each other, didn't we? And then you signed up for the second 100 days, and what was different for you?
I don't know. It's been a totally different experience. The second 100 days, the first 100 days, I just felt like I was throwing all my toys out the pram, and I wasn't really engaging with everything because there was just too much stuff coming up, and I don't think I could kind of process it all quickly enough. And I like to sort of process things and move on and deal with it and move on. And it was like, but I had to go a lot deeper, and that was quite scary. So I think there was a lot of resistance. The second 100 days, I just decided I was going to remove a lot of those pressures. And I think the activities that I'd given myself in the first 100 days were just completely and utterly, if I'm honest now, unrealistic. You know, unless I was Superwoman, which definitely wasn't, there was no way I was going to get these 20 tasks done on a daily basis. It was just silly. So the biggest change I made was actually going and putting something like 5 things on my task. And it was so simple things, but it was things like keep hydrated, move, trying to think some of the others. It was keep hydrated, move, stretching, and there was focal points of things I wanted to get done in the day. So it might be some housework, it might be, I'm a uni student, so it was some study. And I've just got to this place now that as long as these bits get done, doesn't have to be everything, but as long as elements of these things get done on a daily basis, I'm good with that. Whereas very much before, it used to be the bathroom's got to be done, and the kitchen's got to be done, and that's got to be done, and that's got to be done. And it was exhausting. It was just so exhausting.
I think you pick up on a really good point there, and I think that's what we try to do. And in some ways, that's what we do with restricted diets, isn't it? We change too much too quickly, and it's not sustainable. And whether it's about food, whether it's about housework, whether it's about exercise, whatever the goal we've set ourselves, if we set that goal too far off and we don't do it, we're back in that guilt and shame cycle. So the very way in which we kind of set ourselves up to make change is often so huge that it's not sustainable, and then we kind of follow those same patterns. So yeah, it's been an interesting second part, hasn't it, because you've engaged with the training a lot more, so you've got more involved with the exercises. So again, a part of that is about letting go with some of that resistance, isn't it, and trusting the process, and actually making the time for yourself, because when you're already busy, whether you're busy doing real stuff, or in your own head, or procrastinating, or scrolling Facebook, whatever the thing is that's keeping us busy, when you can actually start to step away from that and engage in activities that actually support and help you, it's funny what starts to happen, isn't it? But we all go through that resistance. We all go through that element of, even though consciously we know it's good for us, the unconscious resists it. So part of the process is actually learning to settle that part of us down that's afraid of change, of real change. So tell us what have in the last year, you know, how are things different? We were just sharing an experience that you were just talking about, because you've been quite poorly over the last few weeks, haven't you? You got on the scales, you've seen a bit of a weight gain. Normally you would have freaked out. Tell us a little bit about that. What's been different?
Yeah, so I had I contracted COVID a few weeks back now, and the difference this time, and I'm really chuffed at this, is bearing in mind a year ago I was thinking that I was going to be seriously ill with it. I was ill with it for a couple of weeks and I was weak, but it was very mild symptoms, and so that was like, for me, that was a big thing. Having lost the weight, it was wonderful that it wasn't as bad as what it potentially could have been had I not lost the weight. But then it was a case of I put some weight on because I was resting a lot more, so my activity was lower, and I was eating foods that were easier to get to because I wasn't well enough to stand up and cook and things like that. So I'm conscious that I've put on some weight, but whereas before, what I would have been doing by now is I'd have been really freaking out and thinking, oh my God, it's all going back on, this is really awful, and you know, I'm going to have to exercise super hard, and I'm going to have to cut back my calories and do all this stuff. I've just removed all of those pressures from myself, and I've sort of looked at it as what it is. It's like, yeah, there's been a small gain, but you know what? My clothes still fit me. I'm still the same size. I'm able to move more now because I'm not unwell anymore. So I've joined the gym, and even that was a big thing for me, because joining the gym for me was like, well, quite honestly, I used to drive to the gym, pretend I'd done a workout and gone back home again. I've done that before. So actually, the fact that I was joining a gym, and I think my husband said, oh, to make it viable, you've got to go 4 times a month. And I've gone like 4 times in a week. And that's because I've wanted to go, not because I felt like I can go. And when I go, I can actually do the exercises. I'm able to move and stuff. So like I'm doing my exercises knowing that, yeah, I've had a gain, but my movement's back. My eating is on track because inside I feel better about myself.
And that's lovely, because what that demonstrates, Debs, is that you're learning to like trust that you will slowly just get yourself back into a routine, rather than absolutely what happens like when we start to see a weight gain or something like that is we panic, and when we panic we want to get back into the rigidity, you know, that pendulum of rigidity and chaos, and we want to get back into rigidity because it makes us feel safe and secure, but actually we also know what follows rigidity. So that's beautiful. That really highlights the work that you've been doing on yourself to be able to trust that you don't need to pull yourself back into that place.
No.
But actually give yourself time to recover fully. Christmas is coming. It's not about going, oh, you know, it's also not about going to the other side and going, do you know what, I'll deal with it in January. What you are saying is, you know, there's no reason why I can't get back into my movement because that made me feel so good. So you're doing what you can without going to one side or the other, which is beautiful, because that really shows how much you've embraced the learning, and you are being much kinder and more compassionate with yourself, which is what it's all about. Brilliant.
The movement makes me feel better, and the movement this is what I've realized, the movement for me helps my mental health, and it actually helps me keep my eating on track, because if I've moved and I've exercised, I actually typically don't want to then go and eat stuff that I would normally sort of turn to. So it's all been, it's just like, even like now, if I look at myself and I can see that I've put on a little bit of weight just around my middle, but whereas before I was like almost looking at that and going, oh God, that is disgusting. I'm like, okay, it's there, I'm aware of it's there, but I'm doing something about it, and I'm in a good space to deal with it, and I'll handle it. And that inner dialogue is very, very different to what it was.
And you know what, that is the work is change. You know, of course we've got all of this stuff that goes on around us that influences, but it is our own internal thoughts and emotions that actually drive a lot of our eating. and also our sabotage behaviors, if that makes sense. So the more we work on that inner dialogue, and that takes time, it takes time to move away from like criticizing and being hateful on our bodies as a form of motivation, because that's kind of what we do, and also a form of self-harm and punishment. You know, when we do hold extra weight, when we have such a derogatory view of ourselves, we almost say those horrible things to ourselves as a form of punishment, and also eat as a form of punishment. It's really complex. So obviously going forward, you know, tell us that I'm not going to be, I'm putting a pause on the 100 days at the moment. I'm going to try something a bit different in the new year. I'm going to run it monthly. So tell anyone who's interested in coming and working with me, tell them what it's like working with me.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, there's like, you sign up. I signed up for the 100 days, and I knew that there was going to be some tasks and there's going to be some training and things like that. And I bought into all of that because I liked the approach and I liked the way you understood and what your take on things was. What I hadn't bargained on, which exceeded my expectations, was that if I had a wobble or if something come up that was really not good, then I could send you a message. And I would send you a message, and normally my intention would be I'd just send you a message so that you knew how this was affecting me. But what I didn't expect was the level of support back. So it was like we had a proper conversation about stuff, and if something come up that was really quite big for me, say something come from childhood or something like that, then it was like jump on a call. And it was just like, honestly, Hayley, I just think you went completely over and above everything that was my expectation. But by you going over and above is what's got me here today.
It's really important, and something I say when I invite people to come and work with me is, you know, potentially we are going to be exploring stuff that might open up some emotional stuff for you. And it's really important that I don't do that and then not offer that continued support. You know, and so, you know, I know we had like these voice notes, table tennis with our voice notes, and you know, for that 10 minutes that we spent, you first of all feeling safe and secure to reach out and ask for help, and me like just giving you my thoughts and getting you to think differently, that 10 minutes can make such a difference. And that is, you know, that's part of the work that I do. Part of it is about the group support, and that's something that I really try to encourage, you know, because you guys are all in very similar situations but all unique to you. You can really support each other and create a safe community where you can support each other. I can deliver the training and support, but also as an added there is that I will always say I'm there to support you if you need that extra support. And you know, that's great that you've given me that feedback that does work.
And I think the other thing was the group. Also, for me, I don't typically bare my soul on Facebook or whatever, but the group, I was able to do that. You know, the environment that was created in the private group, I was able to say when things were really bad and stuff like that. And it was really interesting because the ladies were just lovely and incredibly supportive if I did do that. And I know others did the same as well, which was great. But also it meant that 9 times out of 10, even though I might have been going through stuff, it would actually help some of the others in the group who maybe hadn't experienced it or hadn't wanted to voice what they were feeling, and they'd go, I'm so glad you said that because I've been feeling like that too. So and then we had the weekly Zooms as well, so we all got to sort of chat, and I tell you what was really nice with the weekly Zooms was that we all got to realize that we weren't the only ones that are going through this. So I think with your new program moving forward, you're in a group with people that totally get it. Like, you know, I've spoken to nutritionists and consultants in the past about diet and stuff, and they give you a program and they say to you, right, okay, eat 3 eggs, bit of protein, a bit of salad, and some carbs, and you'll be good. But the problem is they're not an emotional eater, so they just fundamentally don't get that you could never stick to that in a million years, and they don't understand it, whereas you do. And I think that is a big thing here in this program.
And you know what, the power of the group is just phenomenal. But of course, what a lot of us have had, if we've had quite shaming experience in groups, whether that's other groups on social media or slimming groups, so there can be a bit of resistance and reluctance to, I think I've frozen.
Oh, I can see you.
Oh, cool. My Can you hear me? I think my
Yeah,
screen
all
is
good.
frozen.
Yeah,
I
all
don't
fine.
really have dodgy signals. So yeah, sometimes we've had these shaming experiences, and so that can put us off being in groups. You know, we kind of almost, we're so ashamed of our food and our eating and our food relationship that we almost want to hide it, and that's why it's create a really safe, secure and open space for people to come and work, and that in itself is so healing and so therapeutic. So that's part of why I run these groups. I do work one-to-one, but I love the group ethos as well, because it can really start to undo and help us to trust again, and to actually speak openly about what's really going on for us. Because, you know, even people I've worked with for years, you know, they still struggle to admit some of this stuff, you know, because it holds such deep-rooted shame for them, and also they're dismissed. You know, if you talk about this stuff to people, they don't get it. Like you say, you know, you've been nutritionists and stuff, and they focus very much on the food, eat less and exercise, and that really discounts all that emotional attachment stuff that we've got going on. So actually to be around people that get it, and that actually not only get it, you know, that it's part of what they do as well, I think is magical.
All of it's been such an eye-opener. It's just been the whole thing. It's overwhelmed me how far I've come, because during that 6 months since I've lost the weight, I've literally maintained all the way through those 6 months. And you know, so I think that is testimony to what, you know, your groups.
Do you know what, you've learned lots of new skills that are still in their early infancy. So there is going to still be that potential on days where you feel like you just get pulled back into old ways a little bit, but the more you practice, the more you manage to like keep with that whole, I don't need to go to the restrictive side, you know, and equally I don't have to give up completely. The more you can kind of just stay in that like parameter and practice, the more that's going to become the new normal for you.
That's why I'm staying with the group.
Fantastic. Oh, Deb, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure sharing this last year with you. And yeah, let's see what 2020.
Thank you. No, you've been brilliant. Honestly, I just hope this helps anyone that's sort of sitting on the fence and thinking, oh, I'm not sure. Just go for it, because it is so life-changing.